Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brave Blaze. This one, weird laws from around the world, written by Dave. Thank you, Dave. Read by me. You're a revered leader, Simon. Someone was like in the comments, like I said, like, what, you're a revered leader. And someone was like, why does Simon think he's our revered leader?
Telling it like it is.
And I'm like, friend, it's just a joke. Unless you want me to be your revered leader, I'll be your revered leader. Let's buy a compound together and get some Kool-Aid. Up until now, everything that I've written for Simon has been entirely factual. I mean, I'm sure that somewhere in the close to 300,000 words I have written. Haven't? Jesus Christ. That's like 6 books. It does amaze me. Like, we do a lot of words. I read a lot of words. My guys write a lot of words. That's just one person. That's just Dave. I wonder how many words I read a week. It's probably like at least a book. It's probably like a couple of books, right? That's pretty mad. As Simon has read, I've made a few mistakes, but I've never actually made anything up. Today, all of that changes. Oh, is this one of the guessing games? Is this a guessing game? I didn't know this was a guessing game. That's right, it's turn to time. It's turn to time to tub. Sorry, let's move on. Let's get it right. That's right, it's my turn to play the game brought to this channel many years ago by Danny. A game that, should I emerge victorious, just might get us some proper cigarettes and beer that is not Carling down here in the basement. You'd be lucky. Carling is the worst beer. Is Dave doing that on purpose? Because he knows I've brought up my particular hate of Carling. Along with, there's another beer called Sol, which I find tastes like blood. It's like a poor man's Corona. And Corona's not exactly a particularly strong starting place, but Carling, Carling's like, when I was a student, Carling was less than £2, I think, which is pretty remarkable. It's remarkably shite, in my opinion. So, sit back, relax, and post your own scores in the comment section, because today we're playing True or False Weird Laws from around the world. Let's go.
True or false?
Just before we dive back into today's video, let me give a quick shout out to our incredible sponsor today. That is Sheath Underwear. Sheath make the comfiest boxer briefs that you'll ever try. And look, if you're tired of boxers being too loose, briefs being too tight, that's me. Well, look, Sheath absolutely have to be your go-to. Look, I'm wearing a pair of Sheath right now, but a nice clean pair of Sheath right here to show you. And they're fantastic. They're stretchy, they fit right, they've got this pocket system so that all of your various parts are nicely separated, and you might think that sounds a bit weird. Try it out. Let me know what you think. It is, at first I was skeptical, and then I'm like, oh no, I see. That works, but also if you're not feeling it that day, you don't have to do that. You can just wear them like a normal, super comfortable pair of underwear. Besides being the comfiest boxer briefs ever, Sheath is also your go-to for holiday gift shopping, and guess what? They've got new seasonal designs rolling out, so you can upgrade your underwear style. Plus, for those chilly days, they've got base layers as well. Trust me, you'll thank yourself later when you try a pair of Sheath underwear. And ladies, they're thinking of you too. They've got new bamboo women's line. Comfort knows no gender. Ready to make the switch? Head to sheathunderwear.com and snag the most comfortable underwear you'll ever wear. And don't forget to use the promo code BLAZE at checkout for an exclusive 20% off your order. That's sheathunderwear.com, promo code BLAZE. Thank you, Sheath. And now back to today's video. Before we get started, and to give Simon a chance to calibrate his lie detector, I thought I'd regale you with a story from my youth, which may or may not be true. During my late teens, I was fortunate enough to achieve a modicum of success playing drums in a heavy metal band. Skeptical. What do you mean by modicum of success? Did you win any BAFTAs?
No. That's not.
For some reason, our signature blend of Metallica covers alongside original tracks that were definitely not Metallica covers, but had they been heard by Lars Ulrich, might have landed us in no small amount of legal trouble, seemed to be incredibly popular. Wait, if they're not covers, if you're just doing something really like another band, isn't that just called music? Because, you listen to a band, you're like, oh, these guys sound just like these guys. And then they develop their own sound over time. It's just like the evolution of music, isn't it? For Simon's information, Lars Ulrich is the drummer from Metallica and is notorious for being a massive dick about any kind of copyright infringement, be it real or imagined. Okay, but like if the law says it's not, then it's not. If you're making a song that sounds like... There's a whole industry, by the way, built around sound-alikes, which is like where you can't use a song like... I don't know, like it used to be Happy Birthday, so it'd be like Happy Birthday to you. Can't use in a movie or whatever. So they'd be like, okay, we'll just do a sound alike, and it'll be like, happy birthday to you. It'll just be like really similar, but just different enough so that you don't get in legal trouble. and obviously a lot cheaper to license. Anyway, toward the end of my music career, I was fortunate enough to play at several notable music venues across the south coast of England. After these shows, it was not uncommon for myself, along with the bass player and the lead vocalist and guitarist, who, for the sake of anonymity, I'll refer to as Aen. Why would you refer to him as Aen? A-E-N? I've never heard that name. I don't know how to pronounce it. Why couldn't you refer to him as just, Bob and Blan? Oh, okay. So it's like, I see. His name's Ian, and the other guy's Blan? Alan, maybe? Ben and... Oh, I see. He swapped the names. He swapped the first letter of the names around, so it's Ben and Alan.
So much for anonymity.
Big brain. Also, Ben and Alan are super generic names, so I don't think there's any real risk here. Adding Dave to the band. We've got Ben, Alan, and Dave. We should throw in a Tim in there, and we'll have the generic band of the century. I mean, I don't know why I'm saying that. Like, most people have generic names, don't they? My name is Simon. It is also generic. Both my kids have generic names. A friend of mine has non-generic name kids, and I'm not going to say their names because they're super non-generic. And I imagine if you Googled them, they'd be the only people with those names. But I remember, like, we were on a trip, and I was like, by the way, he was like, it was his first kid, and I was like, my wife's pregnant, we're having a kid, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. And I'm like, what are you calling him or her? And he's like, well, we're not saying. And I'm like, if I guess it, can you tell me if it's correct? And I'm like, I was just gonna I came up with like a ridiculous name. It's like an obscure Bible name. So let's just say it's like, I don't know. I can't think of any Bible names.
Lucifer.
But I was just like, is it this name? And he's like, what the fuck? And it was. He just like couldn't believe it. He was like, did you talk to my wife? I was like, nope. What? I don't even know. I just randomly guessed. Boom. Let's move on. Let's carry on. Let's move on. Let's go.
Just do it!
Okay, so Ian and Ben and Dave and Tim, we're going back to the house of our manager's daughter to indulge in the consumption of some relaxing herbs, eh? On one such occasion, we indulged slightly too extravagantly in these herbs, which resulted in our complete supply being depleted. Fortunately, there was an apothecary nearby, and given that Aen and Blan were no longer capable of walking and talking at the same time, it was me who volunteered to embark on the noble mission to replenish. After arriving safely at the apothecary, I was somewhat delayed by his vast array of potions containing large amounts of C2H6OH. As a result, I began my homeward journey. I had become unaccountably unsteady, so much so, in fact, that just before I reached the halfway point, I inadvertently stepped off the curb and nearly fell over. Correcting this error as quickly as possible, I continued walking in the correct direction until I became aware of a large car keeping pace with me. That's odd, I thought. Why would somebody be driving around at 3:30 on a Sunday morning and be interested in speaking with me? Nevertheless, I stopped, and so did the car. Seconds later, I heard the unmistakable chatter of police radio. Uh-oh! Shortly after that, I was addressed by a member of the constabulary. This gentleman had seen me fall off the curb and simply wanted to know if I was all right. After explaining that, yes, I'd had a couple of drinks, but the reason I'd stumbled was down to me being blind. He became incredibly apologetic and almost indecently helpful. Wait, I have to say, I assumed, I know Dave's blind. I assumed that he'd seen you, Dave, a blind man, fall off a curb, and he wanted to make sure that you, as a blind man, were okay. I feel like if he was a copper and it was just me who fell off a curb, he'd just drive by and be like, drunken Simon, Sunday night. He practically implored me to climb into the back of his police car and allow him to transport me the rest of the way from buying drugs. I think this story is 100% true, and I love it. Due to the fact that in my trouser pocket I was carrying enough herbs to make it a matter of police interest should they be discovered, I was understandably reluctant to accept this ride. However, he continued to insist, and partly because I did not want to arouse any unnecessary suspicion, I eventually capitulated. So, it was that I and my herbs eventually arrived back at the party with a police escort. The looks on the faces of those other partygoers when this annoyingly helpful police officer insisted on escorting me safely to the door must have now been priceless. They're like, fuck! And then it's like, oh yeah, have a good evening, chaps. It's like from a teen comedy movie. Now, assuming that Simon has found a working pen and decided on whether or not he believes the story to be true, let's get down to the actual content. Ta-da! Okay, Dave's personal weed herb story. True. I'm going to get a point for that, I think. As I have done here, I shall tell a story of an alleged lawbreaker along with the relevant country and the law that has been broken, and leave it down to Simon and you, dear viewer, to decide whether I'm telling the truth. Let's go. It is illegal to be drunk in public in Dubai. Well, a little bit of insider knowledge there. My sister and her family recently moved to Dubai. She got a job there. So, and I know that they're very strict about drinking. Like, if you're a foreigner, it's a lot more slack, but you have to get like a little drinking license, and you have to go to like the special drinking shop and buy drink, and that's about the end of my knowledge, but maybe something I'll be reminded of something. Although the laws on drugs and alcohol are particularly stringent in the Middle East, in Dubai they have some very unusual alcohol laws. Although it is perfectly legal to purchase alcohol on a licensed premises, you could be arrested and jailed for having alcohol in your bloodstream whilst in public. While on a 2-day stopover, Jamie, a Scottish electrician who had been working in Afghanistan, was having a few drinks in the Rock Bottom Bar. Whilst carrying a drink to the table, he put out his hand to touch the hip of a Jordanian man in order to prevent the drink from being spilled. The following document was created using speech recognition.
What?
The following document was created using speech recognition software. Could you please forgive any errors? I don't know why that's that easy. Okay. He claims that in a few minutes, he looked over at the aforementioned man and saw that he looked rather displeased. 20 minutes after that, the police arrived. He was arrested and charged with being under the influence of alcohol in a public place, and later with assaulting the man whose hip he had touched. On the first charge, he was found guilty and sentenced to 30 days in prison. However, he and his lawyer claimed that the court date was moved without them being informed, so he's not actually permitted to defend himself. In a voice clip that he has released after the sentence, Jamie said, "My lawyers have put an objection in against my 30-day prison sentence issued in my absentia that me and my lawyer didn't even know about in the first place." The second charge was eventually dropped after Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum personally intervened due to mounting international pressure, but not before Jamie had spent 3 months detained in the country after having his passport seized. Incidentally, this unexpected extension to his 2-day stopover also cost him his job. That's brutal. It is illegal to become disabled in Trinidad. Okay, well, first of all, Dubai one, that was quite short, and I'm going to say, I think it's real. I think it's real. I mean, I struggle with the thing about, because I know you can drink in like bars, right? But then I think it's real because it's Dubai and it's kind of scary. Okay, it is illegal to become disabled in Trinidad. I also know a little something about Trinidad. One of my mates is half Trinidadian. So, let's go. Okay, so this one is slightly misleading, but only slightly. Under the law in Trinidad, anybody who becomes disabled due to foreseeable means, in other words, due to their own stupidity, is only entitled to claim benefits for 6 months. You know what's also weird? One of his, I don't know why I remember this from being a kid, but one of his relatives is disabled. They were like in a bus accident or something and are in a wheelchair. Why do I know this?
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
Such an obscure detail from my past. After this point, should they continue to do so, they will be deemed to be committing benefit fraud and can face up to 3 years in prison. Not only that, should they fail to return to work in a timely manner, they can face criminal prosecution for what is essentially refusing to contribute to the economy by paying taxes. Wait. In Trinidad, you get in trouble for not earning money? It's like, I just want to stay home. If I don't earn, I don't have to pay any taxes. And they're like, you get to work.
Get back to work!
Holy shit. This kind of sounds true because it's so absurd. If this happens to somebody from another country who is working there under a visa, they will be quickly deported, which is exactly what happened to Charles Jones, a construction worker who had moved to Trinidad from Milton Keynes in the UK. In an interview he gave to The Guardian, Mr. Jones explained that after injuring his back during a stag weekend and being unable to work, he had heard rumours about this policy from work colleagues, but didn't take it too seriously. If I heard about that, I'd be like, yeah, right. No one does that. What are you talking about? And then I'd get deported. It was not until after being off work for 5 months that he received a letter telling him that his right to claim any benefit would shortly come to an end, and if he did not resume working, he would be sent back home. Return to sender. He then decided to take it slightly more seriously. Unfortunately, due to the nature of his self-inflicted injury, he was unable to meet the demands of this letter. Jones said, about 6.5 months after I injured my back, 2 members of the TTPS, I looked this up and it stands for the Trinidad Tobago Police Service, turned up at my door and arrested me. 2 weeks after that, I was back in the UK. I'm going to write this down as real already. It's just too unbelievable to be fake. Mr. Jones remains unemployed in the UK due to his debilitating back injury, and his back... That must have been a hell of a weekend, man. Like, went on a stag weekend. I've been out of work for a year. Just because I got so injured. What were you doing?
You don't want to know.
And he's banned from returning to either Trinidad or Tobago unless he is prepared to appeal the decision in court. Well, yeah, that's what happens when you get deported from a country. They don't want you back. Whilst this policy seems particularly harsh, it is worth mentioning that if you are visiting a country on a work visa, you are not usually entitled to any state benefits at all, so I guess there's that. Oh, well, that's nice. Well, good for you, Trinidad and Tobago. He's given 6 months. But then also giving that only to your citizens as well is a bit harsh. That's a bit much, isn't it? On an interesting side note, I have a friend who lives in Tobago and works for what passes for their version of the National Grid. He claims that although it can be a wonderful place to live, crime out there is absolutely brutal. Yeah, my mate, who I mentioned has family in Trinidad, they don't go there anymore because there's too much crime. So, yeah, that's kind of rubbish. For example, while enjoying a night out in a somewhat disreputable part of town, he witnessed a tourist get mugged for his watch. Now, you might not think that this is particularly unusual for someone somewhere described as a disreputable part of town, but it was the method that the mugger chose to obtain the watch which is unsettling. Oh my god, did he chop off that dude's hand?
Spoilers.
And then just, Jesus Christ. Rather than removing it by force or even threatening its owner with a weapon, this particular assailant used a machete to remove both the arm and the watch and ran away with them both. Should I ever visit, I think I'll stick to the more touristy areas. I'm just going to make a little note here. Never go to Tobago. Don't wear watches in Tobago. Jesus Christ. It is illegal to walk your dog less than 3 times a day in Turin. So we'll put this down as the Turin dog walker. Okay. I think this one's fake. The people of Italy bill themselves as animal lovers, and this next law goes a long way to proving that this is in fact the case. As any dog owner will know, taking your dog for a walk can be both the best and worst of experiences. A long, peaceful walk after a stressful day at work combined with a cigarette and an adult beverage can really help put everything into perspective and make you realize that really, life isn't all that bad. Conversely, when that same dog has diarrhea, possibly due to a bad reaction to worming tablets, as happened to my dog last year, that 15th trek through the park at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning in the pouring rain and blowing sleet can make you wonder just exactly why you purchased the fluffy, annoying bastard in the first place. Whilst I always make sure that my dog gets at least 2 solid walks every day, in Turin, this would be seen as woefully neglectful and leave me open to a fine of up to €500. Also, how do they know? Are they tracking people? Be like, how many times are you taking a dog for a walk? 3. This is the 3rd walk. At 7 a.m. Yes. Or it's like, no, I'll be taking them for a walk later. And they'll be like, it's 11 o'clock at night. It's like, yeah, I'll be going on another one. Prove different. But this new law goes even further than that. According to BC News, people will be banned from dyeing their pet's fur or any form of animal mutilation for merely aesthetic motives such as docking dogs' tails. Oh, this is where they cut the tails off dogs. It's so weird. Dogs don't look right without tails. Stop cutting the dog's tails off. I sometimes see a dog with that, like, just a little nubby tail. And it's like, why would you do that? That poor dog. He just wants to wag his tail and have a good time. And you're just like, no. Cut that off. I don't know what sound that was. Is that the sound of a dog's tail getting cut off? It is now.
I'll just die already.
Whilst dyeing a dog's hair is ridiculous, I'm not sure it could carry the same punishment as physically mutilating your dog because you don't like its tail. Yeah, how is that allowed? How is that allowed? Now, just to forestall a rush of abuse in the comment section, I'm perfectly aware that a semi-cogent argument can be made for docking the tails of working dogs, but neither I nor the law, which came into force in 2005, are talking about that. Whilst walking your dog 3 times a day might present a challenge, especially to anybody who commutes to work, it seems to have been fairly well received in the city. Furthermore, the additional rules about dyeing their fur seem even more popular. According to the city's La Stampa Daily, in Turin it will be illegal to turn one's dog into a ridiculous fluffy toy. This is feeling real. Now, this feels a bit real, but so have all the other ones. Is it really going to be all real?
All made up, not real. Nothing's real.
This seems to indicate that particular newspaper is behind the decision. Whether or not the dog walking was relaxed during the pandemic seems unclear. I'm going to say it's fake. I think it's fake. Although the cutting the dog's tail thing seems so real. Komodo dragons have a higher protected status than humans. Komodos. Well, that's not real, because humans, if you kill a human, you go to prison for murder. If you kill a Komodo dragon, you probably go to like destruction of property, destruction of endangered species, something like that. But it could be in some weird country where they really love Komodo dragons, and they're like, well, we execute people who they fuck with the Komodos. Now, I'm all for animal conservation. Dave is. I'm not. Let's eat those fucks. But this next law seems to take things a little far. For anybody who is unfamiliar with the Komodo dragon, they are an incredible species. Found on 3 islands in Indonesia, Rinca, Flores, and of course, the island of Komodo, there are only 1,383 mature adults left. As a result of this endangerment, the people of Komodo especially treat this animal as something akin to royalty. While tourists are allowed on the island, it is made absolutely clear to anybody who chooses to visit that it is in fact the island of the dragon. What I mean by this is that should you be foolish enough to be attacked by a Komodo dragon, then nobody will help you. Not only that, but they are prevented from doing so by law. This is not to say that there are not rangers and guides who will do their very best to ensure that you remain safe, but if you find yourself being attacked by one of the dragons, then there is nothing they can do. Be warned, travelers, this is not just one of those legal technicalities. There is actually an example of a ranger being prosecuted for attempting to interrupt a feeding dragon. In 1989, an American tourist was visiting the island with his wife for their 20th wedding anniversary. James Turner, referred to by his wife as Jim, had told friends back home that the holiday would not be complete without him coming back with a Polaroid of him standing next to a Komodo dragon. Although his wife was able to take this Polaroid, she returns from the trip with a notable lack of husband. You see, Jim, possibly from Florida, ignored not only the warning signs at the visitor center, but also the advice of pretty much everybody who spoke to him. As a result of this, he thought it would be a good idea to approach a female and her young while they were enjoying a slaughtered goat. Holy sh**. This, as you may imagine, turned out to be a bad idea, and the mother turned on him before turning him into the next course. Oh my god, the Komodo dragon fucking killed him. That's crazy.
Damn, nature, you scary.
The tour guide traveling with the couple, one of the many people who had warned Jim against this exact behavior, reacted instinctively and shot the dragon several times. Although the dragon would survive, Jim would not. If you thought that watching one of your customers get mauled to death in front of you was punishment enough for the tour guide, you would be wrong. No, he's going to get in trouble because he killed a dragon and they loved the dragons. Later that night, he was arrested and charged with attempting to execute an endangered animal while it was engaging in natural activity. Now, when I first heard about this story, I thought that he would probably have received what amounted to a slap on the wrist and told, "Don't do that again."
Right. Now don't do it again.
I was wrong. After being found guilty of the crime, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. I am by no means an expert on the prison system of Indonesia, but I imagine that spending any amount of time there is not exactly a picnic. No, Indonesia is like one of those countries where you just imagine they're like, have I been to Indonesia? No, I've been to the other one. I've been to Malaysia. And all of these countries, they're the kind of places that are like, are you traveling with drugs? Because we execute people who do that. And you're like, it's like you go to prison there and it's like just like some free-for-all. You got to provide your own meals. It's like a country that's scary to visit just on the off chance that you do something wrong and end up in prison there. It's like, oh no.
If you were the one was diagnosed with mesothelioma.
I feel it's important to mention that although the Komodo dragon is an unstoppable force capable of destroying any human that it wanted to, attacks on humans are fairly rare. According to statistics provided by the Komodo National Park Association, between the years 1974 and 2012, 24 people have been attacked by Komodo dragons. Out of those 24, 5 of those attacks were fatal. Again, I'm by no means an expert in this field, but I imagine that the majority of those people were behaving in a similar fashion to our friend Jim. I think it is fake. What do you think? Taxi drivers in the UK do not have to wear a seatbelt. According to Google, the wearing... Surely they do. Why would you not have to? According to... This feels like, yeah, maybe in the past, but then, like, the loophole was closed. According to Google, the wearing of a seatbelt became compulsory in the UK in 1983, which was 4 years before I was born. So back then, before that, you didn't have to. There are few exceptions. There's a brilliant video on YouTube of, like, it was when the drink driving laws came into effect. Like, you can't drink and drive anymore. And there's people being interviewed. And it's like, so what do you think about the new drink driving laws that have been introduced in the UK? And they're like, I think it's excellent guidance.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
Excellent guidance for anyone who can't quite handle their liquor as well as me. How am I going in my car right now and drive? It's really funny. There are a few exceptions to this rule. For example, if you happen to own a car that predates the installation of a seatbelt, you are obviously not required to wear one. Members of the emergency services are not required to wear a seatbelt, and it is possible to obtain medical exemptions from your doctor if for some reason you suffer from a condition which would make wearing a seatbelt more dangerous to you. If I had a medical condition that didn't let me wear a seatbelt, I would just not travel by car. I know that sounds crazy, but getting into a car crash while not wearing a seatbelt is going to be a real bad time. All of this kind of makes sense, but there is another group of individuals who, according to the law of the UK, are not actually required to wear a seatbelt. These people are taxi drivers. Now, there are a number of reasons that are given for this exemption. However, the most important was demonstrated to me by a taxi driver friend some years ago. After he'd picked me up from the pub one night and driven me home, I asked him if it was true that taxi drivers don't need to wear a seatbelt. He responded by telling that they don't have to, but if they are carrying a passenger in the back of the car, they're actively discouraged from doing so. What? What's the possible reason for this? I don't know what the possible reason for this could be. Curious, I asked him why, and instead of explaining it to me with words like any functional member of society might do, he instead told me to put on my seatbelt and wait whilst he got into the back of the car. Once he'd done this, he then provided a very physical demonstration of just how easy it is to restrain somebody in their seat when they're wearing a seatbelt. What I took away from this demonstration was that if a taxi driver was transporting somebody who wished to injure or rob them, then the wearing of a seatbelt could very much assist the attacker. I'm sorry, but you're sitting behind them in a car. If they want to attack you, they can attack you. They're not going to use the seatbelt. They're just going to... I mean, they could, but it's like... That's weird. Like, there's plenty... You're putting a ton of faith in the person in the back not being a psycho. Like whether you're wearing a seatbelt or not. Whether or not a taxi driver is more likely to be saved during a collision than they are to be strangled with their own seatbelt is something that I've not carried out enough research on to be able to comment on with any degree of accuracy. And my feeling is that is not. Oddly enough, you might actually think that this law only applies when the driver is a passenger in the car. This is not the case. A licensed taxi driver who is plying for hire is also exempt from wearing a seatbelt. The reasons given for this seem to be that it would be a huge inconvenience to keep on doing your seatbelt so that you can jump out and assist your new passengers with whatever luggage and assistance requirements they may have. That's insane. This is fake. I can only presume that this explanation is slightly out of date. I genuinely cannot remember the last time that a taxi driver got out of the car for anything at all. Really? Sorry, I had to get my lunch. I don't quite remember, so I'm just going to take it from just if I was commenting about anything, I'm just going to cut that so it makes sense and we'll just go on to the next thing. Okay, so that's the end of the entry. Taxi drivers and seatbelts. Taxi seatbelts. I think that's also false. Or fake. Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
It is illegal to be drunk on a train. That feels true. This UK bylaw of the railway is one that I've broken myself on no fewer than a million occasions. Imagine this. You're trying to enjoy your £34 meal deal consisting of the second worst coffee in the world, the first being that served on airlines, a sandwich that was made so long ago that the structural integrity of the bread has become so compromised that you would be better off trying to eat the resultant mess with a spoon, and a packet of crisps which, if purchased without the meal deal, comes close to costing the same amount as your actual ticket. Yeah, food train in the UK is rubbish. The trains are so expensive. Sandwiches are bad. Sadly, you are unable to truly enjoy this luxury experience because there are 30 drunken lads on their way to a stag do filling the carriage behind you. So, what do you do? Well, seeing as one of the railway bylaws clearly states that no person shall enter or remain on the railway where such a person is unfit to enter or remain on the railway as a result of being in a state of intoxication, you would be perfectly within your rights to stand up and proclaim to the group that they are in fact in breach of the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law. At which point they'll be like, hey! Excuse me. You're not allowed to be drunk here. Hey, throw him off the train. Throw him off the train. Whilst you're at it, you can also tell them to turn the music off, as according to another bylaw of the railway, except with written permission from an operator, no person on the railway shall, to the annoyance of any person, 1, sing, or 2, use any instrument, article, or equipment for the production or reproduction of sound. Anybody who breaks these laws can be asked to leave the train at the next stop, and if they refuse, can be removed by force.
No ticket.
Unfortunately, due to the fact that anybody who works on a train is usually paid a pittance, coupled with the fact that 1 or 2 staff members probably aren't interested in getting into a massive fight with 30 drunken lads, these 2 laws are very rarely enforced. On the other hand, if these rules were rigorously enforced, then I would have undoubtedly been kicked off innumerable trains throughout my youth. On the other hand, now that I am old, when I am traveling on public transport, I want nothing more than to enjoy my journey as close to silence as is reasonably possible. Yes, there's nothing worse than people who are just like loud. There's nothing worse than people who listen to music on their phones out loud on public transport. It's like, what is actually wrong with you, you antisocial bastard? Not wishing to steal the tangent before Simon. Too late! Too late. But before Christmas last year, I was traveling on a train and I happened to notice that one of my fellow passengers was watching the Mega Projects video on the Eurofighter Typhoon. Holy shit, there we go. The script for which I wrote myself. Obviously, due to the fact that most writers are at heart massive egotists, I struck up conversation with the passenger and told them that I wrote the script for the video. Wait. For this person, were they listening to a Mega Projects video out loud? Because Dave is blind, so he couldn't see them watching the video. He must have heard them. So they're watching that out loud? What's wrong with you? If you're watching this, don't do that.
No.
They refused to believe me until I showed them a copy of the script on my phone. However, once I did, they bought me a beer. Legends! Not only is this a remarkably generous gesture on a train, but had I not been getting off at the next stop, it could have started the ball rolling for me on becoming a train lawbreaker. Trains and booze. Fake. I'm changing some of these around. No, I'm not. I'm keeping that as fake. Sorry. It's illegal to work behind a bar in the UK unless you're wearing steel-toe cap boots. Bar and boots. Now, I've worked in a bar, and I don't think people working behind the bar wore steel cap boots. So either they're breaking the law, or this is just a non-enforced law. This particular law is it's fake, sorry. This particular law is one that I'm largely in favor of. Having spent several years running a pub, I can tell you that the number of people who think that it is acceptable to work behind the bar wearing only flip-flops is disappointingly high. Not only is it incredibly unprofessional, but it also has the potential to be very dangerous. Even the most quiet, well-mannered pub cannot escape the occasional broken glass, and should an unsuspecting individual step on a piece of this glass wearing flip-flops, they will quickly discover that polystyrene certainly is not tougher than glass. Furthermore, working behind the bar often necessitates trips to the cellar for the changing of barrels, and given that an 88-pint barrel weighs approximately 9 stone or 57 kilograms, to save space, full barrels are often stacked on top of each other. The damage that one of these barrels could do to your flip-flopped foot doesn't bear thinking about. Fortunately for all those publicans who are sick and tired of repeatedly telling their staff members that they must show up to work wearing appropriate footwear, the 1994 amendment to the Health and Safety at Work Act, made appropriate footwear mandatory. Less fortunately for those self-same publicans, the responsibility for enforcing this law largely lies with management. Should the health and safety inspector pop in on your night off, and on that night Jane has decided to wear ridiculous strappy shoes again, it is you who will be responsible for the £1,500 fine. Obviously, I picked a name at random for this example. The regular offender in my pub was called Sue. And that, ladies and gentlemen, and Simon, is the last entry on today's list. Okay, I think it's true. I don't think I've done very well because they were all so believable. They were all really believable. So which ones did I make up? Let's now go through them together and let's see. Let's start with the tale that I chose to regale at the beginning of this episode. Did I once get into the back of a police car while carrying enough herbs to have me charged with possession with intent to supply? Yes. Boom! Got that one. One for Simon. Dave. 1 point for Simon. Everything in that story is completely true. As an interesting side note, the policeman who picked me up went on to become the licensing officer for my local area, so when I ran the pub I had to deal with him at least once a month. To answer the question that I know you're all secretly asking, no, I never did tell him the story. Is it illegal to be drunk or even have alcohol in your bloodstream in Dubai? I said this was real. Yes! The story about Jamie is completely true, although according to somebody who actually witnessed the event, the Jordanian businessman who reported Jamie to the police really was making something out of nothing and appeared to be showing off in front of a group of friends. Is it illegal? Oh, okay, so I got that one. Yes. Trinidad. I said this was real. Is it illegal to become disabled in Trinidad? No, it is not. Ah, Dave, you get one. This story and the people involved are entirely fictional. However, regarding the tangent at the end, which I told you about my friend who witnessed a man having his arm cut off with a machete so that his watch could be stolen, I believe this to be true, although I only have anecdotal evidence. Turin dog walkers 3 times a day. I said this was fake. It's real. Not only that, but the other bits that I mentioned with regards to docking tails, clipping ears, and dyeing furs are also true. 2 all. Sticking with animals for a moment, is it true that Komodo dragons have a higher... What did I say for this? Fake. Higher protective status than humans? No. Boom. Point for Simon. Although the Komodo dragon is definitely a protected species, and you would certainly get in a great deal of trouble for killing one for no reason, there do exist laws preventing anybody from killing one in self-defense or in the defense of another person. One of my favorite stories about Komodo dragons comes from David Attenborough's book, Zoo Quest for a Dragon, which I read for the first time when I was about 10. The book tells the story of Attenborough and a group of other animal enthusiasts who embark on a quest to capture a member of this legendary species so that it might be housed in the London Zoo. During this quest, which, if my memory serves me correctly, took about 3 months, Attenborough breaks several ribs, contracts malaria, and he and the rest of his party get lost at sea on several occasions.
I am not making this shit up!
What the fuck? David Attenborough, I know you're old, but this feels like some 18th century shit. I was on a journey and lost at sea with malaria. Although they're ultimately successful in capturing a dragon, they're not permitted to remove it from the country, so they're to release it back into the wild. It's a highly entertaining book that's worth a read. Is it true that taxi drivers in the United Kingdom don't have to wear a seatbelt? I said this was fake. It's absolutely true! Oh, 3 all then, Dave. Not only that, but the reasons behind this law and the story about the demonstration that was provided me to the taxi driver are also completely accurate. No way! Wow. Returning to alcohol for a moment, is it, in fact, true that it is illegal to be drunk on a train? I said this was fake. Yes, it's true. I copied the exact wording for these bylaws directly from the handbook. Dave, you're beating me 4-3. Best case scenario for me is now that I get the last one, and we draw.
Right, high stakes. I like it.
It's probably worth mentioning that I do not recommend taking the course of action that I may have playfully suggested during this particular entry. If you, in the situation I described, you're far more likely to get your ass handed to you by a group of angry revelers than you are to receive any positive results from your knowledge of the train. Throw him off the train! Just in case anybody is interested, the bit about the guy who was watching the video on the Eurofighter Typhoon was also true. In fact, this is not the only time that this has happened to me. My local kebab shop, which I won't name in case people come looking for me, seems to have pretty much all of Simon's channels playing on a loop. I was in a McDonald's once, and they were playing my videos, and I was just sitting there in a McDonald's, and then someone was like... And then I left because it was too awkward. A couple of times while I was waiting for my cheesy chips with extra pickles and chili sauce, something that I've written has been playing on the big screen. So, we have arrived at the final entry and the big one that matters for Simon, and also Dave, but I want at least a draw. Is it illegal to work behind a bar in the United Kingdom unless you're wearing steel cap boots? As much as I wanted this to be the case, no! Oh, no, Dave, you beat me 5-3.
Loser! You're a loser!
Dave, you're good at this. Kevin and I have a much more even scorecard. I don't remember what the scorecard is with Danny. I'm sorry, Danny. So seriously though, anybody who works behind the bar, do it anyway. The dangers that are used as examples in this entry are very real. I myself once broke my nose while changing a barrel on a busy Friday night. Shit! Whilst attempting to move a barrel I believe was full but was actually just stuck to the floor with some spilled Coke syrup, I pulled it up as hard as I possibly could, only to have the empty barrel break free from the syrup, fly upwards and shatter my nose. Jesus Christ. Although the wearing of steel-toe cap boots wouldn't have prevented this, when I hurled the barrel to the ground in anger and it landed on my foot, I was incredibly glad I was wearing them. I'm still undecided as to exactly what the worst part of that evening was. It is split between being stupid enough to do it, having to work the rest of the evening behind the bar with a broken nose, and having to tell every customer I served exactly what happens. This story is also true. So, How did I do? Were any of my fabrications convincing enough to fool anybody? For the record, I really enjoyed writing this one. If by chance you enjoyed watching it, then please annoy your friends and colleagues until they watch it too. If it gets enough views, I might be able to do another one. That's true. If this gets enough views, we'll do another one. 5-3. I got some catching up to do. Well done, Dave. And that's where we end today's video. Thanks for watching. Let's turn to time to tub.